the fund that we have now, I think we touched upon this a little bit in the last podcast. We're going to be liquidating a lot of the NFTs that we have on the lower end. We're holding, the ones that we think are still valuable. What are the types of projects we're holding on to? Which are the ones that we're liquidating?
Holding Moonbirds, we're holding our CryptoPunks, we're holding our Apes, we're holding our Admit One, maybe. Probably the more higher priced items that we don't think are going to keep going down, pretty much.
So with the ones that we're selling, how are we determining the ones that we're selling off that we're going to be using for cash to deploy in lending?
There's either not a lot of activity going on in the project, right? And so you can determine that through Discord and Twitter. Some of these have just, literally lost 90% of their value, to which they're pretty much probably going to go to zero, in our opinion, things like that. So Anthony and I speak a lot about, every day about what's going on. And he just recently went to Lake Como and, had basically introductions to 20 real important people in the space and guys who are running actually $1 billion in Web3. And so a lot of the same themes come up of where these people are placing their investments. And it's really around infrastructure that has to do with Web3. How do you invest in infrastructure that has to do with Web3? You would have to invest in a company. But like even Stevie Cohen the other day, I sent an article around to you guys, is starting a derivatives desk for crypto, right? That's an infrastructure play on crypto, right? But who can do that? Nobody, unless you have the resources, the tools, the people, the money to do all that stuff. But that's one of the play, or start a company around Web3. We have two friends, Ben Ladani and Todd Tobacco, who are starting a company called Deployment, which is going to make it easier for people to mint or drop a project on their platform, kind of like Wix for minting, right? That's an infrastructure play on Web3. The other place is generative art. So generative art is, like art blocks and any of these things where you mint, where you don't know what you're getting until after you see your piece revealed. Those are two things that have come up more than once.
So we just became ambassadors for Nftfi. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how that ended up happening?
Yeah, so Nftfi is a lending platform, which I actually believe you found. And so what we were doing and our whole team liked was the ability to offer Ethereum as a loan to someone who pledges their NFT as collateral through Nftfi's platform, who take a smart contract escrow and hold that until the loan, the term of the loan is expired. And at that point, either the person has paid back the loan or they don't. And if they don't, you as the lender can default and then you claim their asset and it goes into your wallet.
There's another option too, though, right? If they default, to negotiate before you collect the asset.
That's not an option. That's through Discord. If you actually have communication with the person, you can certainly do that because it doesn't automatically default. You can message the person if you don't want the asset and say something like, hey, you defaulted on this. Did you mean to default? And if they say no, you can say, well, I'll give you another 3 days if you XYZ. But it's not an explicit option in Nftfi. And a lot.
So this is peer-to-peer lending. So do you see that that's happening a lot? Like you don't want to be a dick and grab somebody, or is it just?
Yeah, you don't want to be a dick. A lot of the times you don't know who the other person is that you're lending to, because if you can do this without being on Discord at all, and so somebody will list their asset and then people just put offers in right underneath it, right? They're not communicating at all. That's not my preferred way of doing it. I actually try to hit the person up and discuss what their wants are. And if they're in line with what we're willing to do, make an agreement with them. Then I'm like, hey, I'm putting my offer in right now. Go ahead and accept it. I'm going to leave it up there for 10 minutes, right? That's kind of how I do it. And then I also like forming the relationship with the person. And then, of course, that's why you're saying you don't want to be a dick. You don't, because some people on the Discord servers, they're like, this person, not me. This person took advantage of me. They defaulted on my loan. I just forgot to pay it and they won't give it back. But it's it's your responsibility to pay the loan back. You're kind of just being a crybaby on Discord when something like that happens, right? The difficult part, and another cool infrastructure play that almost exists, but it's not even good, is when somebody just offers an NFT. So somebody offers their CryptoPunk and says they want to take out a 50 ETH loan against it, right? The only thing associated with that punk is that person's address. But how do you communicate with somebody only having their address? Well, there's an Ethereum chat site where you can put in the person's wallet address and it'll allow you to chat through their site. That's only if that person has registered on that site and you have registered on that site. I have yet to communicate with somebody that way. So you really can't communicate to somebody when you just have their address. You can put it into OpenSea and you can see what they own, but you can't like find the person, right? So what
But why would it Nftfi make that?
they are
Because
they're
I can
developing that. They're
Yeah,
develop
because I can understand, like, maybe you don't want two people interacting, cutting you out. But the reality is, the safety is on the site, right, and the technology that they have. So it doesn't make sense to bypass them, right? So why not?
well, they're using Discord right now, which is not on their site, right? But this has come up in our ambassador talks, and is what you asked me. So, but what you can do on Nftfi's site is you have like your own profile. So on my profile, when somebody clicks on my or our WeKo's wallet address, I put my Discord name. So that if somebody actually looks at that, they can go friend me on Discord and start talking. So that's a helpful thing for somebody like me. Now, how did we become ambassadors? Yeah, I was active on the Discord because before we started loaning, I was just chatting people with how it works, what it was about. Then we did a test loan. And then probably within the first 10 days, we probably did like over $100,000 worth of loans, right? And it was, 100,000 US dollars worth of loans. And so and it was early on in Nftfi. So we started getting noticed, and people were coming to us a lot for loans and asking us, and that's what we wanted. And then, shortly thereafter, Nftfi actually had an application process looking for ambassadors, looking for educators, looking for promoters, looking for people to monitor their Discord. So I registered as an educator. And we've been with them for a couple months now, which is cool because we get to talk to the founders. Actually, Anthony and I spoke to Steven yesterday, the founder of Nftfi, and George, who's one of their top guys. So we have access to the team, kind of have we're privy to the things that they're developing before it comes. They ask us for their opinions. Anthony just ran a structured product idea that he has by them to see if they like it and to see if they're interested in doing it with us. So those are some of the perks of being an ambassador.
When we started lending, we came up with guidelines, but we didn't stick to them. So I just want to make sure that we're sticking to the guidelines that I think um, we all agreed on, right? Which is basically we don't lend for more than 30 days. APR minimum is going to be 30%. And, we're not going more than 50, 60% LTV.
We didn't come up with guidelines the first time around. Anthony had what he liked. I had what I liked. We were the two main players. There were no steadfast guidelines. The big point of contention between us is Anthony didn't want to do loans over 30 days. I did want to do loans over 30 days. And we did some 90-day loans. After that is when the market started correcting, and that's why we get into that discussion.
So I think one of our big benefits when we actually open up to allow people to start giving us money to help them in this space is because anybody go to Nftfi and start being a lender on their own, right? But what I found when I was doing it was, one, you don't know all of the projects, right? Like you really have to know these projects well because you're lending on something that you hope doesn't depreciate right over the course of the loan, or else they're just going to default and you lose your money and you're stuck with trash. So you have to have knowledge of all of these projects because it works the same way. Knowledge that, hey, if they default, I'm okay with it. Knowledge of if they default, I'm stuck with it. You have to know the projects I think that you're getting involved in order to make a smart decision to lend. So that's one. Two, I found there's a lot of offers and a lot of people flooding the smaller loans, right? So when we have three, $4 or $5 million, we could be lending on the much bigger projects. We could be lending 100 ETH at a time, which to me are the safer projects. And I think a lot of people wouldn't have access to those types of situations if they're doing it on their own, right? You're coming in maybe wanting to lend 10, 15,000, but you're going to be in a bucket with a lot of people competing again in a lot of offers. Whereas if we're lending, 100 ETH plus, they're part of our lend. And I think that's an advantage. What do you think?
Nftfi actually has a dashboard now that shows a lot of metrics, and the highest I don't know about frequency, but total dollar amount is definitely on the higher end projects. So like Board 8 Yacht Club is the number one project that's lent against for sure. The interesting
Right.
thing,
So, but they're not taking loans that are 10, 15,000. They're looking for loans, that are
I mean,
50,
I saw
60.
one guy just lent his Board 8 for 1 ETH for 3 days. You could do anything you want, but you're just talking about in general what's happening, right?
What is the average? So we agree the average APR or the minimum that we're going for is about 30%.
I don't think we've agreed on anything yet. Still, we will have to have that conversation. Mostly, what happens is when I see something that looks interesting. Well, Anthony and I already have a filter that filters down all the projects down into just 10, or I even have it down now to 8. So I'll only lend against 8 projects, and so I don't even look at any of the other stuff. And then like I don't even want to be concerned with crypto dick butts and goblins that are doing half ETH loans, right? Just kind of like a lot of churn, unless you can package them all together. Like if you can package 50 goblins into one loan, which is also coming on Nftfi, and there's a platform called Arcade that already does that, then you can do that kind of stuff, right? Because now you're talking about a higher ticket loan for us, which is what we want. But usually what happens is this. Anthony knows more about NFTs than I do, straight up. He follows this more in depth and has great knowledge of it. I have a lot too, but I often lean on him for his expertise. So I'll say, hey, there's this asset. I think we should loan against it. He and I will have a conversation, which is pretty much like the underwriting process, right? And at that conversation, we'll determine what the LTV is going to be, what we're comfortable lending, what APR we should do, and we do it according to the other offers out there and like how aggressive we want to be. So just to give you an example, like if we're saying 50% LTV is our rule and 30% APR, I mean, we could literally have anybody just go through the assets we like and just offer out 50% LTVs at 30% APR, right? The conversations that Anthony and I have are like moonbirds right now. We're happy owning more moonbirds, so we will lend at higher LTVs and even possibly more competitive APRs, because it's almost like in that case we're like looking for the default, right? So like if we're
Yeah.
happy buying a moonbird anyway at under 10 ETH, then why not loan 9 ETH on a ton of moonbirds? Because if we get them, we get them. Makes sense?
Yes.
What WeKo Labs is doing is 2 things. Number one, we're forming a legit hedge fund, and people are probably not going to be too aware of what this means right now, but there's something called being GIPS compliant, which is a term that institutions are comfortable investing money in when that fund company, whatever, has that significant, I'll call it accreditation, right? Like we are GIPS compliant. That actually doesn't really exist in crypto, NFT, any of that kind of stuff, right? The first conversation we had was we were going to go through all the steps to make our fund GIPS compliant, so that even if we aren't officially GIPS compliant, we can basically show somebody like, hey, look, we've done all these steps already, so that when it is possible, like we not technically are GIPS compliant, but we are GIPS compliant. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so an institution may be comfortable, writing a $10-20 million check to our fund to invest because of that. Now, separately, which is what you're, pretty much spearheading right now, is there's a ton of people that we talk to who also don't have any idea about how to buy an NFT, what the hell it is, investing in cryptocurrency, but do know that they want to invest and get some exposure to this. So you and I went to a conference at the Westchester Country Club over a month ago, where we learned that you now can start putting out what we're doing right now, material talking about this and taking investments or subscriptions online. And so we're going to start educating and people and taking questions. And we haven't determined what our lowest investment threshold is, but anybody who wants to put 5, 10, 15 grand, to work, can give it to us, and we'll invest it in our fund for them, and they can learn more about that. And so if you want to talk about what we're going to be doing for that, go, let people know.
The experience and the knowledge that we have in this space, and we're going to be telling people what we're doing step by step, right? The ups and the downs. It's a learning experience for everyone, right? We're not coming in and being like we're experts, we know everything, but we're in it, so we're learning. So just like anything else, we can help a lot of people who are coming into the space and help them not make the same mistakes that we're making. But it takes a lot of work to build that kind of trust, which is why we're putting out the content that we're putting out. And we're going to have things set up so that people can come to us and ask us questions. We're going to start doing lives, Q&As, webinars, etc. And it's really just to inform people about what we're doing, and not only open up what we're doing to them, but actually getting people who are interested in the space as part of our community. And what I mean by that is, dude, there's opportunity for gamers. There's opportunity for graphic designers right now. There's opportunity for it's like a wide open space, and I think that if we can become a hub where talent, some people may not even know they have talent, but if they can bring ideas to us and we have the resources to make it happen, I think that's going to be a beautiful thing. So again, the more we put stuff out there, hopefully the more people we attract to our community, and then the more things that we can do with our resources and the talent within that community.
Cool. And what I think also is that when people do want to put some of their money to work, people have IRAs, people either have financial advisor or some kind of robo advisor, or doing what you're doing, which is just auto investments every month, right? And typically, until this space happened, people will invest in stocks, bonds, or real estate, right? And then there's other forms of alternative assets. So if you're just putting money, for the longer term for you or for your family, you also want to think about now that there's a new space called cryptocurrency, NFTs, Web3, that you would probably want to allocate some of that money to as well. And now, with a lower minimum of 5, 10, 15, whatever it ends up being, you can do that in addition to the other investments that you're allocating money to, which I think is also appealing to a lot of people, because this is here to stay, and it could be a great return over a 10-year time frame.